In this presentation, I will cover the product development process, the importance of calendars in product development, production and delivery lead times, and creating a work back calendar. So before I get started, I would like to introduce myself. So my name is Glynis, and I'm a clothing brand owner turned business consultant, 20 years apparel industry experience, and I love helping fashion designers, entrepreneurs, and brand owners build a purposeful and profitable business so they can make a living doing what they love. I have a decade experience working with big companies, as well as also I had my own clothing design company for 10 years. So, and I'm currently the founder of Chase Your Dreams Consulting, which offers business consulting and SEO services for fashion e-commerce brands. I also host a podcast called Chase Your Dreams Podcast, and it's available on most podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and Spotify. And I've also been featured on the front page of the business sections of the Vancouver Sun, National Post, Globe and Mail, and I've also been interviewed on CBC Radio. Before I had my clothing business, I had worked for many fashion companies, from small mom and pop shops to large well-known companies. I found that those companies that follow a calendar, whether it's a product development calendar or sales calendar, they're better to stay on top of timelines and meet their deliveries. Those companies that didn't use calendars had problems getting their products delivered on time to stores and clients. When you know your deadlines, there's no confusion what you should be working on. It creates a more harmonious, less stressful work environment of not always being behind the ball and scrambling. You give yourself and your team enough room, including a buffer in case things go wrong. It gives everyone some breathing room to get stuff done and sets a good work pace and not have to rush, thus reducing the chance of making mistakes, which can be costly and time consuming. So the best calendar system that I used was when I worked at Reebok as a product manager. I managed the NFL and CFL licensed apparel lines. I worked closely with the teams, owners, and equipment managers to outfit the players every season. Time was spent up front, properly planning and creating the calendar before any action was taken. We were able to operate on a very lean and mean team, running the entire licensed product division with only 3 people. And we never missed a deadline that was within our control. Sometimes outside factors happen, like a mistake in production, but with proper planning and an added buffer, that minimizes the effect the mistake has on the overall outcome. So let's define what is product development. Product development is the stage between design and production where your idea comes to life. And this is an area I'm really passionate about. It's where most of my experience has been when I was working for large companies. So I worked as a technical designer, I've worked as a product developer, I've worked as in production. And so I'm very, very knowledgeable in this area when it comes to product development. So I can really speak on this. So I'm going to walk you through right now the product development process. And so for those of you who perhaps are in the process of launching a brand or who are running a brand, clothing or designing clothing line, that sort of thing, there's a lot of steps that happen in between from the time that you come up with your idea to when you are going to have your final product delivered. Okay, and so the steps that are involved in this process typically, it all starts with market research. And I work with clients on this and helping them define who their ideal customer is, because really it all just starts with them. It all starts with knowing who your ideal customer is. And who it is that you help and how you help them. So you need to be able to understand what their needs are, and so that the product that you design is able to serve and meet those needs of the customers. So starting point always is do your market research, right? And talk to people and ask them questions and see, what is it that they are looking for? What are their pain points and challenges? Once you know that, then the next step you want to do is to budget and source your line. So sourcing involves, fabric sourcing, and, materials and trims, and also your suppliers and your factories. And also budgeting is very important. And why I have it, in the upfront in the very beginning is because oftentimes people don't think about it, and they don't know how much money it's gonna cost to put together a line. Really, you can't start a brand with no money. It's gonna cost you money, whether it's on the research development stage, whether it's in marketing, and obviously if you're producing a product, you're going to need some inventory. So you need to know how much it's all going to cost you. Okay, and so understanding the numbers and doing some budgeting in the beginning is going to help you understand that. So you're not going to at the end up spending like hundreds of thousands of dollars and just be over budget. And that's the problem that a lot of brands have, is that they run out of money. Okay, so once you have that figured out, then you can start to put together your vision board, your mood board, collecting ideas and inspiration together for your line. Then next, what we do is we create a line plan. And the line plan is something that helps us determine what the products we're going to have in line, the colors and the product mix. Then you have sort of an idea of how many styles you're going to have in your line. Then you can go and start to design and start to sketch out your designs. Okay, when you have your designs all sketched out, obviously going to go and perhaps edit down the line and figure out which ones are going to end up going to sampling stage. So you would need to produce a technical sketch, ideally on a computer, using something like Illustrator, something to sketch it out, because it's just cleaner, it's more professional, it's more presentable. And you're able to do color ups easier when it's a computerized sketch, as opposed to hand sketching, right? You can change up the colors, you can play up the colors, you can use them as for your line sheets later on, and catalogs even. So that's definitely something that is good to do on the computer. Then you can go into the pattern making and sampling stage. So, it's time to go and find, someone to help you if you aren't able to draft your own patterns and make your own samples. Ideally, having the pattern maker and sample sewer in the same location is ideal. Okay, because this process, they need to be able to work closely together. Any changes that happen on the sample needs to be communicated over to the pattern maker so that they make the changes. Okay, then costing. At this point, I usually set up a costing grid and start costing out my products and understanding how much the cost is going to be. At least get a rough estimate and how much you're planning to sell it, so you can at least figure out what your margins are going to be. And I'm talking about gross profit margins, so that if your line is profitable. Okay, you don't want to go into this blindly and assume that, well, you're going to be making money. Okay, you need to understand both sides of your costing grid. You need to understand what your selling price is, and you need to understand what cost is, and you need to understand what your margins are going to be. Okay, and then next we go into the fittings, right? And this can be, take on so fittings depending where you are, and most likely if you're new and starting up, you may take 1 to 2, maybe even 3 or 4 samples. There is no number. how many fittings you need or prototype samples you need. It's just until you actually get the fit of the garment right and the way that you want it to look. And so when you're doing your fittings, you probably want to fit it on a model, a person. Clothing looks different on a person than when it's put on to a mannequin or Judy, because bodies, they move, right? So you want to see how they fit. And you want to have your pattern maker, sample maker there, ideally. If not, take pictures. It's probably the best way to be able to communicate the information back to your pattern makers and sample sewers. Once you have your samples fitting properly the way that you want them to, then it's probably the time that you can create your tech packs. Okay, you can collaborate with someone on that, a tech pack designer, or you can do it yourself if you know how to. But tech packs are really important because it is like the blueprint for your design, and it's what the factories use to follow. And also, it's also a communication tool, okay, for you and between you and your factory. I always use the tech packs to document any revisions or changes that I make to the garments. And I always document and write the date of the revision and when it happens. And so the factory knows when that comment was made. And if there's any issues or disputes that happen, then you have that documented on the tech pack, so there isn't really any dispute whether or not you said or they said this or that. Emails, I find, are probably not the best way to communicate changes when it comes to the garments fits and specs and stuff like that. So the next thing is you want to find your factory. Choose the factory that you want to work with to do your production run, right? And so I could probably do another workshop on factories. Actually, I do have a workshop planned coming down the line on garment manufacturing. So I'll get more into the specifics of how to select a factory, what to look for, and how to work with them, and building up a relationship with the factory as well. But the stage you have your factory that you've chosen to work with for your production, then you're ready to move into pre-production. The pre-production stage is when you have your patterns and all your samples, your final samples that are approved. You need to have your patterns graded. So that means that, when you're doing your samples, you're only doing in one size, typically your fit size, whatever that may be, different for different companies. Sometimes they go with a medium or whatever, is their fit size sample. But when you're doing production, you need to be able to grade the full size set, right? From small to XL, 2XL, whatever size run range that you are offering. So you need to have all your patterns graded. You need to have all your markers done because they have to use that to cut. You need to make sure you have all your fabric ready and ordered and sent to the factory, unless the factory's ordering the fabric for you on your behalf. So, and you have to make sure you have your labels and hang tags available as well. You need to make sure you have your production purchase order sent to the factory. So you need to make sure you have all these things to your factory before they even start, okay? And then production starts. And I'm going to talk about production lead times and delivery lead times a little bit later down this presentation. So we'll cover that. So production happens, and then the factory, now it's in the factory's hands. They're in the process of sewing everything, sewing and making, And then when it's done, you have to go through quality control, make sure everything looks good. Whether or not the factory's checking, well, they should be checking, but you should be checking as well, and asking for approval samples along the way. So something like a production sample, TOP, stands on top of production. Sample should be sent to you for approval before they ship, okay? Because this is the way you can actually ensure that the product looks the way it should. You don't want to receive your product and realize that there's a mistake or something. By that time, it's too late, right? So I think when I do my production workshop, I'm going to actually tell you more about the whole sample approval process that happens along the way before, during, and after production, okay? Then once it passes inspection and meets your quality standards, then your product is all ready to be shipped. And then deliver, hooray, you finally receive your product and it's all good. And now it's ready to be sent out to the customer. So that is, in a nutshell, what the whole product development process looks like, okay? And, with each stage, like, I talked about briefly, but there's more involved, like, steps that need to happen within each of these steps. But this is, in a way, more or less the production process. And also sometimes, like, this process, I try to draw it, in a linear fashion. It's not a very linear process. Sometimes, changes need to be made, iterations happen, revisions have to kind of go back, that kind of thing. So it's very a fluid process. So here's a little trick that we used to use at Bebop when I was a product manager there. We had a lean and mean team managing our entire product division. We started with a deadline and we do a work back calendar. So say if you needed your products for production by September, and usually September is for fall deliveries, usually the busiest time for factories. So when you're working with a factory, always ask what is the lead time, okay? So overseas lead time is longer than domestic. So, and you always need to allow for things to go wrong. So always have a buffer to allow for mistakes. I can't emphasize this enough because in my time in working in production, I've seen mistakes happen even on repeat orders of the same thing. Mistakes happen. So you need to give it time in order to, if you need to fix anything, they can do that. So if you need your products by September 1st, then you need to give your orders to the factory by January 1st. So by June 1st. Say if it's like a 3-month production lead time, you have to work back from September 1st, and then you count back to June 1st is when you should be giving the order to your factory. So you need to make sure you have your orders and your fabrics all shipped and ready for them to go, so that they are ready to to start production by June 1st. And then, you probably should give yourself, a couple weeks to compile all your orders. And if you're doing wholesale, you need to get your orders all from your customers and buyers. So maybe, you would have to set April 15th as your order deadline for your buyers so that they're able to get their orders in on time, right? And not everyone always, ends up, there's always some people who are late. And so you got to give yourself a little buffer. So if to the end of April, but you tell them April 15th is the cutoff to receive the orders in order for them to get their order in on time. Then you have to, factor in, calculate your orders and then how much you're gonna end up producing. So calculate your orders that you're gonna produce. You need to issue the purchase order, you need to order the fabrics, you know, if you need to get patterns and if you need to get, hopefully by that time patterns are done. But I mean, grading, marker making, unless your factory is doing that all for you, you got to make sure you have everything all there delivered to them by June 1st. Because you can't expect your factory to meet their delivery deadline if you can't meet your deadline. If you are late at giving your factory everything they need to get started, you can't expect them to stick with their deadline, and especially with a busy schedule like fall production schedule. Factories have to plan ahead, and they have to, because they have a schedule they have to follow, right? And so they need to put you in. And so if you're late, it kind of throws them off schedule, and they have to keep going, and you could potentially lose your spot, your production spot. Okay, so be very, very mindful of when you need to have everything over to your factory. So now that's why having this calendar, like 1 year calendar in front of you, this is very handy because you can see all the months in front of you. And then so now you have those dates, you can take them and then you can put them onto a product development timeline. And I mean, this is nothing fancy, this is something that can be created in Excel. It's just a simple spreadsheet. So things that I'm showing you today are things that don't require fancy, software, apps, anything. Just, I used this system when I was working at Reebok. So, and it just works. So this is a product development timeline here. So what you would do is you would start with the key dates and then place them on your calendar, then work backwards. So your production order date, right? Or when your production needs to be due, you could start with that. Then you could put when your orders need to be sent to the factory, when fabrics need to be ordered, when patterns and markers need to be, when sample prototypes need to be approved, when you need to cut what your customer order deadline is, when your tech packs need to be done, right? Da, 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 da. Put everything in, what needs to happen, what needs to be done, and the date, by what date this needs to happen. Okay, because flying by the seat of your pants doesn't work very well. So plan ahead of time. And this is just an example of one that I have filled out, for example, for a hypothetical company. So here, I plug in all my key dates. And then, right here, I have pack and ship to customers. So this was the deadline. April 15th was my deadline to ship to the customer. So I had to say April 1st was when my shipment was to arrive in my warehouse, and production was due March 15th. So, and then so started my production February 15th. So, and then planned production quantities was February 1st. So this is where I had all my dates in, and what sort of my work that calendar looked like. Okay. Now I'm just going to show you what a line plan looks like. And we use this at Reebok back in my day. Again, simple spreadsheet, but everybody in the team used this, and it was the starting point. And this is what we use to plan out what the line looks like at the start of every season. So I put numbers, corresponding numbers to each of these columns mean, because I know the text is a little bit small and hard to read. But essentially, this is kind of like your skeleton of planning out what the line is going to look like and what it's going to consist of. And you're going to put in your projected quantities, and right next to it in column 10 is our quantity sold from last year. And so this is where we usually pull up past year's sales numbers to figure out what we sold last year, so we know what to plan and buy for this year. But if you are starting out and you're new and you don't have any history, historical data, you're gonna have to guess at this point. But I would start low until you realize you know what the demand is. Um, so yeah, this is sort of what um, a line plan is, and starting of a getting your cost estimates as well, because your FOB price, that's the cost that you pay um, for your product, and then the target price would be the price that you are planning to sell it for. Okay. So I'm gonna talk about production lead times. So for bulk production, typically for knits are usually a shorter lead time. It's about 75 to 90 days for the mills to develop and manufacture. Woven fabrics usually take about 120 to 150 days for the mills to develop and manufacture. Sampling lead times usually 15 days if fabric is available from the mills, and if fabric sample yardage is not available, then the lead time will depend on when your sample yardage is available. Okay, so this is guideline. Check with your factory. You can always confirm with them, because lead times can change depending on the busyness of the factory, right? So you want to confirm with them ahead of time before you place your order what the lead time is going to be for them. If you're anticipating an order coming, you want to give your factory a heads up and then say, I have an order coming, I need them for September 1st. So what is going to be the lead time for that? And then get the date, and then you know when you have to place your order. Okay. And then delivery times. So delivery method times vary. The faster you want your product in the hands of the consumer, the higher the cost. Working further in advance and planning more efficiently will help you save money. Your delivery method is dependent on the budget and urgency of delivery. Also consider how much margin per piece each product can allow for delivery. The more significant the product margin, the more the profit, which will enable you to ship via air if necessary. If you know that the customers will pay for a product at a higher cost, then you should have the margin to ship by air. If you order larger volumes or have a shipment with heavier weight products, planning ahead and shipping by sea can save you money. So this will be delivery lead times to location from overseas like Asia to North America. So by sea would take about 30 to 45 days. By air, 4 to 5 days. By freight, and freight usually like truck or train, 7 to 10 days. And you can always consult with the customs broker to estimate your transit time. You're probably thinking, oh, why does it take this much time? Because you also have to factor in time for customs brokerage and clearing and all that stuff as well. And don't forget to add buffers. So I say that a lot, but it's true. Really always add buffers for things to go wrong. So congratulations, you made it to the end of the workshop. Thanks for being here and taking the time to learn this information. You showed up to the webinar and have been here with me taking notes and already excited and ready to take action on what you've learned today. Let me know in the chat box, what was your favorite piece of information you learned today? To have a buffer. I love it. So important. You guys are awesome. Yes, to have a buffer. So before I get to some of your questions, so let's recap what we covered in this webinar. We talked about the importance of calendars in the product development process, how to calculate your production and delivery lead times, and how to create a work back calendar so you never miss another deadline. So who's ready to take action? I love to invite you to go deeper with me in my label launchers mastermind group coaching that's starting in March. This is a mastermind community for fashion entrepreneurs and clothing brand owners. And I made the program affordable because I know all the expenses that go into running an apparel business. And this allows you to keep your costs fairly minimal, but you're still able to get the support from someone with experience who's been there and can relate to what you're going through. The Label Launchers Mastermind group is designed for fashion entrepreneurs and clothing brands who are looking to get more done and grow their apparel business. You showed up here today looking for a solution, and this program was created for you. The Label Launchers Mastermind group will help you go from confusion and overwhelm to clarity of how to launch, build, and grow your brand. So what's special about the program? Well, this is a genuine collaborative experience. We work together as a whole to support each other, reaching our goals. There's plenty of peer-to-peer support. In addition, you'll also have access to the Chase Your Dreams Slack channel to communicate with myself and others in the program. You'll get customized tools, templates, resources, and content specific to the needs of people in the mastermind. So one of the things we will cover in the program is how to talk to manufacturers. I know for many designers, one of the biggest fears is how to communicate with manufacturers. So in this program, I will help you communicate better so you can find the right manufacturing partners for your products. And I will also provide scripts and templates that I use for my business. So you'll be rewarded by following through with the things that you commit to in your business. We make accountability fun, and we want to create our wins, celebrate our wins together. So the mastermind the classes are hosted by me, and I'll have guest mentors in as well. And so I will get feedback from the members to ensure the content is relevant for people, and it is what you actually need to grow your business. And the best part is that you'll have access to my 20 years apparel industry experience, 10 years working for big brands such as Monaco and Reebok, as well as running my own design company for over 10 years. So the link to register is here. I can also put it in the chat afterwards. But I'm going to pretend I'm the only expert out there on fashion entrepreneurship, but there are others who help people. What makes working with me different is I discovered what the key stumbling block was for people who are struggling with not having an action plan, not knowing exactly what to work on and what action steps are most profitable. Also, I ran a clothing design company for 10 years, so I can relate to what you're going through. In the Label Launchers Mastermind, you'll get access to my private Slack community, custom masterclasses, weekly group coaching calls on Zoom. You'll have access to the client learning portal, which will have all the recordings from our sessions. You'll have access to all my resources. We'll have little mini mastermind groups. If people need, help with a particular topic, I will bring in a guest mentor to help speak to you and help coach you through things. So it's very specific and very tailored to the members' needs in the group. The program is for you if you have been in business for less than 3 years, you need help finding an audience and building brand awareness, you have confusion around what you should be doing to move your business forward, you want to make more money and grow your business, you are not sure where to get your products made and how to talk to manufacturers. This program is not for you. However, if you are not ready and willing to take massive action to build a wildly successful clothing business, and you are okay with wasting time figuring out things yourself and willing to make costly mistakes. So, are you ready to take action and move your business forward? Then the Label Launchers Mastermind group is for you, and registration is open. I'm putting the link in the chat right now, so you can all go and take a look at it and go and sign up. I would be charging $1,000 a month, and I charge more than that for individual one-on-one consulting. I do one-on-one consulting too, if that is something that you feel that you need. I've spent over $50,000 on my education to get where I am to launch my brand, and I've been in the trenches. I know what works. This isn't stuff you can Google, right? So I'm doing this because I want to see more people succeed and launch their labels and do it. So the cost of the program is only $350 a month for 3 months if you register today. Okay, so all you have to do is go and click on the link to the sales page. Then you'll fill out a questionnaire about your business and hit submit to the checkout page. And once you enroll, you'll receive a welcome email with the instructions on how to access the learning portal, and where you'll see all the recordings and links to the templates and resources, and as well as the Zoom meeting link. And you'll be able to start connecting with other members in our private Slack community right away. So I think it's great. I had my group that I ran last year, and we finished at the end of this last December. And you know, they started with me. They signed up for 3 months, but they actually worked with me for over 6 months. And they were all at different stages of the business, and they, you know, they were just ultimately just kind of confused on what to do. I think that was sort of what most people come in going like, I don't know what to do, right? So we work on a plan together, and I think the weekly check-ins are great because it gives you that accountability to help you move forward with things, right? And so you're just not left to have to figure all this stuff out yourself. And also, you know, it's a really great supportive community. You know, those collaborations that come out of it, you get to meet other people, you know, make friends as well, and just feel like there's other people out there who care and want to support you, and that you're not in this alone. Because this journey, right, in entrepreneurship, it can be a lonely journey. I know this. I've been doing this. I did this for 10 years, and now I'm, even with this business, I am doing this as well, and day in and day out. But it's like sometimes you just need that motivation. You just need to have that support. And that's what the great thing is, you know, about this program. So I really encourage you all to go and check it out. Click on the link. I just put it in the chat. And hopefully I will see you there. And now I just would love to, you know, ask if anyone has any questions about the program or what we learned today. Let me know. Does anyone have any questions? Here, I'm gonna go and take a look at the chat here. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you found this presentation helpful and that you have a better understanding of the whole process. Yeah, I'm gonna actually just share my contact information with you again. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. My Instagram handle is @GlynisTao. My website is glynistao.com. My email is hello@glynnistao.com.